Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing, start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, good seeing you, Daryl. It's always good hanging out with you when we have super amazing guests like we're in for a treat today. But something tells me this is going to be one exceptional conversation, Mr. Daryl Amy.
I think by the end of this show, you're going to want to push for change in your life. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation with our friend Joe Roberts. Hey, thanks for joining us today. By the way, if you're new to Selling from the Heart, you've joined a growing community of sales professionals who are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust, all the different attributes of what we call selling from the heart. And it's awesome to hear from our friends all over the world.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a special shout out actually to a past podcast guest who has now become a dear friend of mine by the name of Dave Wan. And if you remember Dave, for those who listen to the podcast religiously, he unpacks some self-limiting beliefs we all have around finances. Dave, thank you for being in this community. I appreciate you.
Yeah, here. And if you missed that episode, that's one to go back and listen to. You're a true Selling from the Heart champion, Dave. Well, hey, today's guest is living proof that your past does not define your potential. Joe Roberts is known as the Skid Row CEO. He's a former homeless addict turned successful business leader, best-selling author, and award-winning speaker whose life is a powerful story of transformation. Joe's journey took him from the streets to the C-suite, and along the way, he discovered what it truly means to lead with heart. He's best known for his incredible initiative, The Push for Change, where he walked across Canada to raise awareness for youth homelessness, turning personal adversity into a mission that has literally inspired millions. For sales professionals and leaders like us, Joe's message hits deep. Resilience, accountability, and belief in yourself are not just life skills, they're performance skills. And Joe's story reminds us that when you face adversity head on, take ownership of your choices and lead with purpose, you can unlock levels of impact you never thought possible. Joe, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's awesome to have you here.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for hanging out, Joe.
Yeah, as we get started, Joe, you know the question that every guest on Selling from the Heart answers, and that is, I'm curious, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you?
Yeah, if I had to think about where that starts for me, it was on a park bench 35 years ago, sitting beside this old fella named Gus. And at the time, I was dirty, disheveled, pushing a shopping cart, collecting cans. And this fella looked at me and he saw something in me. And he said to me, he said, Joe, there's more to you than you can see. In the introduction, you talked about resilience. I didn't have that. I needed someone who believed in me. And I think that the single most important skill that any entrepreneur, sales professional, sales leader needs to have is empathy. Understanding that both the people that we serve with our goods and services and the people that we lead is to see that possibility. That sparked an internal change for me. I got up off that park bench, and a short while after that, took ownership of my life, went into drug and alcohol treatment, went back to college, graduated with honors, and then went out into the world and began to apply myself.
Oh, this is so good. And I'm so looking forward for you to share the story. And as I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, this is what was just racing through my head as a sales leader or sales professional. Here's what I'd question everyone is, what are you doing to become that spark for somebody else, meaning your clients or your future clients, to get them to think maybe a little bit different about their business that pulls them out of wherever they're at? Y'all can become that spark. And that's kind of what I took away from what you just said, Joe. So thank you.
Yeah, I like to frame that as to be like Gus. This guy spent 10 minutes with me on a park bench, but he said something to me. He also had some hard stuff for me to listen to as well. Like, not everything was warm and fuzzy, but I think that, it framed in that he said, you're not showing up as your best, and there's a potential inside you. And so when I share this story, I talk about how can we be like Gus? For me, how I ended up where I'm at it's not that I pulled my socks up and got on with it. I'm here today because people invested in me. People saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, and they worked to draw it up. If I got you to write down the 5 people that impacted you the most, for me, one of those people was my first sales manager, Lanny Flores. Because he saw me as a diamond in the rough, and he was like being like Gus. And if you add up all of those people, it's easy for us to identify the people who had that impact on our lives. Well, here's something that's interesting. Whose list are you on? Who could you impact today? Whether it's the barista at Starbucks or someone who's struggling in your team, or a client. And it's not always about the, getting the paper sign or, getting the deposit or making that transaction. I think that some of the strongest relationships I've had in my life are through that empathic based perspective of leading like Gus.
And what's really interesting to me about this, Joe, is if you think about the profession of sales and the profession of leadership, it's about recognizing potential. Right? We go into, if you're selling, you're in talking to a prospect, you're recognizing and helping them recognize and unlock potential. Obviously, a good leader is doing that as well. So I think there's something really, really beautiful about this empathy to see and then to be able to help figure out how to unlock potential, at least recognize it in prospects or team members if you're a leader.
The older I get, the more I go back to some of the stuff that I listened to in the very beginning. And one of the people I had the pleasure to meet was Ziggy Ziglar. And I met him at a conference, and he told me, this was before I ever became a speaker, before I wrote my first book or anything. He says, you need to share that story. And one of the biggest things I got from Zig was, you help enough people get what they want, you will get everything you want. And now when I look at my life and career over the last 30 plus years, it's so true. Right.
There's something powerful to be said about that. And the word that I think we can zero in on, Joe, is help. Is if more salespeople can really just own the word help, truly own the word help. I'm here to help you. They already know that you're there to sell them something. Let's just face that. But no, I'm actually here because I care and I want to help you. And if you help enough of your clients, they will help you. I think it's just the law of reciprocity.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I agree with that. There was a time when I was hungry and ruthless in the first 10 years because I had a hole I was digging myself out of. There was things that I wanted in my life. There was things I wanted for my family. There was a distance I wanted to put between me and that guy on the street. but as I aged, I found that I can move faster and have way more impact when I'm not just selling, but solving and helping and being that sort of guided advisor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe, you have an incredible story, and we've kind of pieced a little bit of it together here and there, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about kind of the backstory behind Joe Roberts and what's brought you to where you are here today.
Yeah, sure. It's not an untypical story, unfortunately, in North America. You know, I lost my daddy early. Yeah, he died when I was 8, and our family didn't have a backup plan. We came from a lower income family. Dad worked at a seatbelt factory. And so, you know, tragedy struck our family. There was no plan B. Mom had to remarry relatively quick or lose the house. The guy who came into the family next was a violent, abusive alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And so I had the beginnings of some early childhood trauma. And at 9 years old, my brother was experimenting with drugs, asked me to join, and I jumped in. And it wasn't about, you know, the curiosity of drug consumption or any of that. It was about belonging, you know, to fit in. And but what happened is I used, and all of a sudden I felt safe and protected. And I lived in a world that felt really uncertain. You mean, look at the world today. I mean, there's so much going on. Mm-hmm. My question to listeners is, what is your go-to when the world feels uncertain? You know, you're heading into the end of December and you're expecting all these things to drop, and they don't, right? For whatever reason. And you're starting January with a donut and you're looking at, how do I get to President's Club? You know, all of that. So, and human beings, their most natural thing to do is to find a way to shift our emotional state when we feel uncertainty, fear, and anxiety. And I found a way to cope. Unfortunately, by the time I was 15, it stopped working for me, and I started getting into trouble. I got kicked out of school. I got kicked out of the house. I started getting into trouble in the community. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was that kid pushing a shopping cart around the downtown east side of Vancouver. And I never really signed up for it. I didn't consciously say to myself, hey, I want to be that guy, you know, addicted to drugs, living under a bridge. But because of poor choices and decisions, that's where I ended up. Mm. Then there was the chance encounter with Gus. I got into treatment. I went back to school. And when I exited, here was something that was really interesting, is that all of that negative stuff turned out to be an asset, because I had the gift of communication. I can sit at a boardroom even to this day, and I kind of know what's going on without words being said. So I've got that thing that Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Blank. You know, I was an outlier. I could see and understand what was going on. I had the ability to shape conversation. I had grit. I had resilience. I had a hunger to get after it. And the entry level job for me at the time when I got out of college was sales. And I was selling copiers, photocopiers. And I thought it was the greatest.
There you go.
I thought it was the greatest job on earth until somebody told me, you know, selling copiers isn't that glamorous. I'm like, nah, man, I'm having the time of my life. And I couldn't understand why people didn't love this. It's like you go out and you knock on 100 doors and you'll get, 10 or 15 active pieces of business, and then just track them and follow them through. And so in less than 12, that was my first job. Then I did that for 2 years. And a friend of mine said, you'd be really good helping us develop this business, this startup. And it was the late 90s, and tech was booming in Vancouver. Well, everywhere it was booming. And I jumped in and I helped build this company. And in less than 12 years, I remember the day I walked into the office, and sitting on my desk was a copy of Canadian Business, and I was on the cover of it.
Wow.
In less than 12 years, I went from that guy pushing a shopping cart, struggling with drug addiction and mental health, to being the Canadian version of the American dream. Hmm. And the cool thing about that is that it was all through, the profession of selling. It was taking those negative life experiences and then going out and helping people, whether it was copiers or the design company that we built.
Oh, this is so good. Thanks for sharing. And I can't wait to dive into more, but I just think of one word, and that word's resiliency. And I'd be curious how Joe Roberts defines resiliency, because I think it's innate in all high elite sales professionals and sales leaders. It's their ability to overcome. So how do you define resiliency? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it's simplicity. I'm going to give you the simplicity on the other side of complexity, because we throw these buzzwords around like resilience. I got to get resilience. Get resilience is get off the couch and take some action. That's it. It's that simple. There's three things that I look for in driving my business, or if I was managing a salesperson, to build resilience. And it's a model that myself and Dr. Richardson have been working with for the past 15 years, and it's called AIR. But resilience is taking action in the face of negative emotion. That's it. I don't feel like it. Okay, well, the world doesn't care that you don't feel like it. Just go take action anyway. It's like, do you think any pro athlete wants to get up at 4 a.m. and do the workout? Do you think that the entrepreneurs that we hold in high esteem, you don't have 10 years of sweat equity, worry, their house on the line in order to get the whatever it is that they got off the ground, right? But it doesn't happen. Sometimes resilience needs accountability, right? And so one of the things I'm a huge advocate for is having those people, coaches, mentors in your corner to hold you to account, right? So A is the action that we take. I is the inspiration or purpose that drives that action. And R is the situational and psychological roadblocks. So you can do anything. You can build $1 billion company with this simple thinking. 1, get off whatever park bench you're on today. 2, connect to a reason why you need to go out and do whatever it is that you're avoiding doing. And 3, recognizing that roadblocks and stuff is gonna land in your path. And that's just life on life's terms.
Mm. Incredibly powerful. Thank you, Joe, for sharing that. And by the way, everyone listening in, you're going to find in the show notes a link to Joe's book, The Push for Change. You got to grab a copy of that. I know he's going to talk about it at the end of the show, but I don't want you to miss out on this book. But you talked about the roadblocks and I'm just curious, for our friends in sales, if you reflect back on the early part of your sales journey, what were some of the biggest roadblocks you found personally? I mean, you were taking action, you had an inspired reason to do it. What were some of the roadblocks, and how did you tackle those, or how would you advise people tackle them now?
I would say that the biggest roadblocks I faced were internal, is mindset and thinking about myself. Mm-hmm. Hesitating to wait, perfectionism, waiting till I'm really good enough to go and do something, not doing enough, just the self-belief. Mm-hmm. I sometimes, there was sometimes where I felt a little over my head, but I found that action always reduces roadblock. Always. Feeling anxious, do something. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just to get active. And if you have a hard time initiating that action yourself, because self-discipline sometimes takes, is get accountability. Get someone in your life to work through that. On the situational stuff, the outside macro environment, well, we don't have a lot of control about that. So, what is the plan B? It's like, okay, if something gets thrown into our life that is a serious roadblock, what can we do, or what can we test, or what can we try in order to find a way around, over? But I have found that, and again, it's that simplicity, is that action always breaks through roadblock. But if roadblock paralyzes us, then the R gets bigger and the A gets smaller, and we get distethered from the why, or the purpose. For me, I always had that picture of my family really close somewhere in my office to remember why I'm doing this.
This is so good, and it's so interesting, because here we are. We have an audience full of sales professionals, sales leaders. So often in sales, we talk about skill set and so forth. But what we're talking about here that just reigns true, that I so buy into, this is mindset issues. You just said self-limiting beliefs. These are all the things that we have to overcome. And sometimes it takes that I, or that inspiration from others, that belief, right? People seeing something in us that we don't see in ourselves to help us overcome the mindset and the self-limiting beliefs, because I think that's what squashes results.
And you're bang on. And the research, this isn't just, an idea we made up in our basement with an acronym. The research actually supports these ideas. Carol Dweck and Dr. Becky Kennedy point to, Dr. Becky Kennedy said something so profound. She said, resilience doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Doesn't. Nah, man. When you wake up in the morning and you're doing stuff that you don't want to do, but you know you need to do this because these are the boxes that have to get ticked. But if you do that consistently over months and years, you put distance between whatever bench you're sitting on today and where you want to be. Dr. Carol Dweck, famous Stanford professor, she talked about growth versus fixed mindset. And the one thing that we should teach our kids, and this is the same in sales, is to take action. Because it's in taking action that you discover yourself.
Yeah.
If I never got off that park bench, that encouragement that Gus gave me would have faded. And I'd be the same guy, and life would have trickled out the way it did. But that spark allowed me to take action, and then it took one step and another step and another step. We don't build our careers, our families, our lives, and our legacies based on big action. It's all the little steps that add up over the months and years.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I'll look at a pipeline and I'll go, where did that deal come from? Oh, that was that thing out of the thing and 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 that coffee I had with that guy 7 years ago. I always find that interesting is when you track the DNA of a deal and you go, oh, that was that thing that seemed benign at the time that's now a $250,000 contract.
Beautiful. We've got a lot of great leaders listening into this show, and as sales leaders, I don't know if leaders fully understand the potential for impact that they have in the lives of the people that, whether they're tenured reps or whether they're a college student that just happened to get their first sales job. I think that there is so much potential for impact with sales leaders. What would you say to our friends out there who are either currently or aspiring to be a sales leader?
Well, it would go back to that thing about Gus. It's like, if I was to get people to write down the 5 people that impacted them, it's easy for us to do: mom, dad, uncle, first coach, first sales. There's those names are easy for us to pop up. Whose name might you be on? If you look back, who have you been a Gus to? When I sold my company in 2003, I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to do more. I went out and I made some money, and I'd acquired everything that our Western culture says leads to success. But then there was this yearning of give back, of impact. And that's when the idea to do a campaign to walk across Canada came up. And initially it was just this caffeinated, altruistic idea that, hey, wouldn't it be cool to walk across the second widest country on earth? And we began noodling, and it was so big and so audacious that I had to sort of track it down until it was either dead or something we were going to do. And we breathed possibility into it, and we got busy. And what we found is we had all these like-minded people, and this dream to walk across Canada, pushing a shopping cart, a symbol of homelessness, the throat of my story, became a reality. And over 18 months, we impacted over 100,000 kids. We raised a couple $1 million, and we actually impact federal policy. I think that we underestimate what we can do, and we underestimate the impact we have on other people. It's when I look back at my life today, I wish I could go back and thank Gus. I had 10 minutes with that guy, and I never saw him again. And as a throat, I get emotional thinking about this. It's like, if I could go back and thank that guy and let him know that 10-minute conversation with a kid who was hopeless and rudderless would change the trajectory of my life. And now when I look back, the couple million people I've had the honor to serve, there is more to us than we can see. It's not just this trite bumper sticker. It's the real deal. And all we have to do is have the courage to step into that.
Well, first of all, I'm grateful that you're on this show talking to Daryl and I and sharing this story. It's definitely been impactful. And I can tell you're touched by it because I saw the little almost tear in your eye. When you think of impact, and it's a little vulnerable, but I'm just going to go there if that's okay, Joe. If Gus was sitting in between Daryl and myself, what would you share with Gus if let's just say he's sitting in between Daryl and I virtually on this because we found Gus and we popped him in on the show? What would you say?
Probably something to the effect of, you don't know it, but you had such a profound impact on my life. I'm the man I am today because you said something from your heart to me, and the God in you touched the God in me, and it helped me to get up off that bench.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your heart today. I know our listeners are asking the same question I'm asking, and that is, how do I get more Joe Roberts in my life?
Sure. I can be easily found on LinkedIn. Joe Roberts, Skid Row CEO. If you chat AI or chat GPT me, I come up. There's a website. There's also, if you want to learn more about the foundation, the Push for Change, you can easily find that with the search on AI or on Google.
Love it. Joe, thank you for investing in us today. Thank you for taking action to share your story with millions of people. We're really, really blessed to get to know you. And here at Selling from the Heart, we're cheering you on.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Larry. All the very best in 2026.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. What an incredible, incredible conversation, Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got, Daryl, you just got to roll with me on this one. And then you can put a nice tidy bow on our wonderful time together with Joe Roberts. I just want to let everyone know that Daryl Amy greatly impacted me. As I was listening to Joe's story, it was, 11 years ago, I reached out to Daryl and I made a phone call to Daryl. Daryl, I know you know this. And he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And as Joe was sharing that with us earlier in our conversation, Daryl Amy's just conversations racing through my head because I wasn't in a very good place when I reached out to Daryl, but he saw something in me. And I'm just forever grateful to you, Daryl, for changing the course of my life. And obviously, here we are at Selling from the Heart. There's a point behind all of this. As leaders and as salespeople, we have more impact than we think we do because there's somebody out there. You never know what somebody's going through until you're willing to help or throw a lifeline out or get them to see something differently.
Well, thank you, Larry. And it's not good to be speechless when you're hosting a podcast. Thank you. And you know what? I've watched you pay that forward to many, many people. And this is what I think we have an opportunity to do as sales professionals and sales leaders is recognize potential in people, recognize potential. And that if we can do that, amazing things are going to happen. So, hey, I want to say thank you for joining us today. We've got great things going on. Would you do us a favor though? Help us spread the word. Tell somebody in your bullpen, one of your clients, one of your peers about Selling from the Heart. Maybe you share it on social and maybe you leave us a review. But what's happening in 2026 is this movement of authenticity and trust in the sales profession. We're committed to seeing it continue to grow. And we've got great episodes coming up. Larry, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we made this promise many, many years ago on this podcast. We're going to bring new voices, fresh ideas, thoughts, inspiration, all to impact the wonderful world of sales.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, push for change as you recognize potential in other people, and most of all,
sell from the heart.